It's a Wonderful Life is a 1946 film that is considered to this day to be a classic Christmas film, even though when it initially came out, it didn't do a very good job in the box office, even though it ended up being nominated for quite a few Oscars the year later. And this movie's been beloved by generations, and it's a film that I had actually never seen until literally just now. And right after watching it, I thought I have to immediately do a review on this because this movie is just something else. So, I didn't know what exactly the movie was about, and I think that's the best way to go into it. So, if you haven't seen it yet, this will contain a bit of spoilers, mostly pertaining to the actual plot of the movie, because that in itself is technically a spoiler. But if you haven't seen it yet, I definitely urge you to go and watch it first. So what is this film about? Well, it follows George Bailey, a man who has given up on all of his dreams in order to help people, and one day he just has one of the worst days where he begins to regret everything and is pushed to the brink, and it's to the point where he actually contemplates suicide, but, and it's on Christmas Eve. His potential suicide brings up the intervention of his guardian angel named Clarence, and Clarence shows George all the lives that he had touched and how different life would be in the community if he had never been born. James Stewart, or Jimmy Stewart as a lot of people know him, plays George Bailey, and I will admit, and I actually did check this before I actually started doing this review, I have never seen a Jimmy Stewart film. I know, shun me, but after seeing this, I know that I must watch a lot of his films immediately because he was really great. This was a great performance, and it's the kind of role that gave Stewart a lot of room to display a wide variety of emotion and just different acting styles. And there are moments where he turns on the charm, moments where he puts on this humorous nature, but then it's the moments where he turns on the dramatic tone. And the dramatic acting was when I was really hooked into the story. Just seeing the close-up shots of his face during the third act when he's running around and nobody knows who he is, nobody recognizes him, and you just see that he's going through this horrible situation, and you just see how he's taking it, not through words, but through his facial tics. My heart wept for him. This was an amazing performance. I really don't understand why it didn't win Best Actor the year that it came out. But then again, I'm not too familiar with many films of the 40s, so... And of course, everybody in the film gives a wonderful performance. This is a pretty well-acted film. For people born long after this movie came out, like around this generation, will know that the whole idea of someone showing you how things would be if you weren't born has been used probably way too many times, but I do believe that It's a Wonderful Life was the first time that that's actually been done, and I really love the parallels to A Christmas Story, where the main character's story is told to us, but is told in a more chronological way, instead of the way that it's done with Christmas Carol with the three Christmas spirits telling him his backstory through different parts of the middle, and just instead of seeing at first a guy who's a dick through and through like Scrooge, we get to see this really wonderful guy who is indeed worth saving because he truly has a big heart. He's just having one of the worst possible days, and I mean, we all have those kind of days. And even when it gets to its predictable end, the 20 minutes that happen before the ending actually gets there really just turns the predictable ending into a well-deserved payoff that is sure to warm anybody's heart and, and make them cry, whether or not they normally cry with the movies or whether they have cried already or not. But if they have already, this time it'll be tears of joy. I loved watching this film because watching the cinematography made me really appreciate even more the concept of stage-oriented cinematography, where it would just be wide shots focusing on the actual actors and their location, and you get to just be sucked in by the atmosphere and the actors' performances. I would actually consider this a masterpiece if it wasn't for one really glaring issue. And there's a couple of times in the film where the editing is very jumpy and sometimes doesn't really make any sense. For instance, they have a scene where there's a couple of people talking and the camera's centered on one guy who's focusing on somebody who's sitting down. It's kind of like, you know, this, kind of. And, like, you can see his face. And then when the transition happens, like, he's not standing in the same way. Like, he's not hunched over him like I kind of was. Instead, he's, like, a bit further away from the desk, and his body is in a different posture. It's really weird, and it's, I don't know, it was really jarring, and it took me out of the movie a few times. But other than that one glaring issue, no pun intended, I think this is a wonderful movie, and I cannot believe that I waited so long to actually watch this. Now I have another movie that I can add to my Christmas lineup every year. I will be giving... Oh, excuse me. I just had Starbucks. Ugh. Starbucks doesn't agree with my throat. Anyway, I will be giving It's a Wonderful Life 4.5 reels. Well, that'll do it for me today. Please subscribe if you haven't already for more reviews and content. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Farewell until the next video, and Merry Christmas.